What's up, Arc Junkies? Welcome back to the show. This week, I'm chatting with Jonathan Webster, the mastermind behind JD Stairs. Celebrating 20 years of innovative stair designs, Jonathan shares the adventurous journey from his early days in Canada to establishing a successful business in the heart of Las Vegas. In this episode, we chat about the evolution of JD Stairs from humble beginnings to becoming a premier custom stair manufacturer. Before we get into the usual business of the podcast, I wanted to let you all know that there will not be a new episode next week. I am finally taking a week off from all things in the welding world to enjoy spring break with my family. But don't worry, there's over 360 episodes of the Arc Junkies Podcast for you to get your fix. So please check out the backlog of episodes. And don't worry, I'll be back to regular episode releases the following week. And now, a quick word from our amazing show sponsors. Today's episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast is brought to you by Outlaw Leather. Outlaw isn't just a brand, it's a statement of quality and craftsmanship. With over a decade of experience, they specialize in creating custom welding hoods that not only protect, but also project your personal style. Each hood is meticulously crafted with premium materials to ensure the highest level of safety and comfort. Outlaw Leather understands that every welder is unique, so they offer a vast selection of designs, or you can customize your own to stand out in the field. And don't forget, Outlaw Leather also offers a wide range of welding equipment and accessories to complement their hoods. Take advantage of an exclusive 15% discount on all in-stock handmade leather hoods and gear by using code word ARCJunkies in the discount box at checkout at outlawleather.com. Outlaw Leather, where craftsmanship meets style in the heat of the arc. We're also brought to you by the American Welding Society. You all know how much I talk about attending seminars and conferences and how much it's helped me along my career path in the industry. Well, I wanted to tell you about the next conference that I'm going to be attending. On August 6th through the 8th, I'll be in the Woodlands, Texas for the AWS Welding Summit along with many of my friends and mentors, and I hope to see you all there. This year's Welding Summit will examine how key sectors, including petrochemical, energy, renewables, aerospace, life science, and semiconductors, are evolving in today's welding landscape. It's going to evaluate advancements in welding power sources, heat treatment, filler metals, base metals, and NDE processes. You'll also explore the growth of influence of automation, AI, streaming-based welding training, and intellectual property protection in the industry. Reserve your seat today at aws.org/conferences or just click the link in the show notes and use promo code ARCJunkies at checkout to get a free gift for attending. I hope to see you all at this year's Welding Summit. All right, you know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
Thank you for downloading show number 362 of the Arc Junkies Podcast.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
Jonathan, welcome to the Arc Junkies Podcast, man. How you doing?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Can't complain. The weather's beautiful out here and got plenty of work. Can't complain.
Yeah, it's nice here too. I kept waiting for winter to come and it hasn't come. We're in Las Vegas and I think one day I woke up and it was below freezing and all the rest of the days it's been pretty nice.
Damn. Do you guys ever get a winter out there?
You know, usually we get a couple weeks of cold where it's below freezing every morning, and so we get some ice frozen on the gutters and stuff, but not this year. It's just been warm.
Just been warm. Yeah, we got a little bit of winter this year. A couple days we're in like the low 40s, mid 30s. I guess it snowed in a couple parts of Florida. I guess out by Tampa got some snow, which I thought was odd that they got snow and Orlando didn't. And then I guess up in the Panhandle there was quite a bit.
Yeah, there was kind of a storm that kind of crossed over there. People in Atlanta too, I remember talking to them. They were like, oh, yeah, it's snowing.
Yeah. So you own and operate JD Stairs. Tell me a little bit about your company, what you guys do. I mean, the name kind of implies what you do, but like, tell me how you got started into the stair industry.
Yeah, at one point we were just going to call it JD Stuff because we do so much more than just stairs, but we thought we'd just keep it as it was because it started that way. So we originally, actually, our family's from Canada. I was born in Cardston, but lived in Calgary, Alberta, till I was maybe 10. I think we moved to Las Vegas in 91. And my dad was framing houses. He just got so tired of the snow and trying to deal with that stuff that he's like, I need to find somewhere warmer. So we went like the polar opposite of Canada and ended up in the desert in Las Vegas. So it's hard there at first because, we're up in the mountains and pine trees and all of that. And now we're in the desert. And so I remember my mom being really homesick, and we were going back every summer to spend the summers in Canada. But my dad was framing, and he did that for about a year when we moved to Vegas. And then he was just kind of freelancing, doing his own thing. And then there was another company in town, a stair company, that hired my dad on, and he just loved it, took to it really quickly into the finished carpentry, and loved the doing curved stairs, and that's got a whole knack to it, and a lot of people struggle with that, but he's got a real mathematical brain, and so he gets the geometry, and so he really enjoyed it and just kind of stayed on. And so from being a young kid, I was around stairs from the time I was maybe 11 or 12. And I'd go after school and on weekends and help him install stairs and rails and do that kind of stuff. And so growing up in it, it all became second nature. And then I was probably, maybe 24, I think, when, so I was working in that same company. Actually, from the time I was 17, I started work for that stair company, worked for them till I was about 24. And then my brother and I both kind of split off, and that's the D in JD. So I'm Jonathan and he's Donald, and we were installing together for that other company, and we said, all right, we're ready to do our own thing. So we split off in 2005, and so it'll be 20 years this year.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Was that a pretty easy transition because I've had this conversation a couple times on the podcast recently, because I read a book, and can't remember the name of it. It'll come to me in a minute, but it talks about how you have you got an entrepreneur, the technician, the supervisor. And so like the technician, like you were doing the installs, like how to do the work. Now, hey man, we already know how to do this ourselves. Let's go out and, let's just do it for, ourselves. We'll start a company and we'll go, but like then you get all the aspects of running the business and managing the business that you're like, oh shit, there's a lot more to installing stairs than, setting anchor bolts and making sure everything's plumb and level and square, and, the rise and run is correct and the pitch and all that stuff. There's paperwork and accounting and HR and hiring people and firing people and ordering materials, like all this stuff. So, was it a pretty smooth transition going from working for a company and then jumping in and starting your own business?
Yes and no. Yes, all of that stuff comes into effect, and I am very lucky in that. So when I left, I had, there were 6 members of my family working for that other stair company. And so my brother and I left, and of course there's all the mail needs to get answered and taxes and all that stuff. Someone needs to handle that. And so shortly after I had split off and was now competing with that company, they were not real keen on keeping my mom on as working there. And then she's also, mom to me and competing company. So they let her go maybe 4 or 5 months after I left, and she came over and started running the office. So I am very lucky in that I had her and my brother and actually 2 other brothers that came on shortly after as well. So I've had family around me and people I could trust. And so I could let her kind of handle that end of it. I ordered all the material and did all the bids and estimates and stuff, but all the money stuff, which I'm not very good at, so I'm glad that I can hand that over to people. She handled it from right at the beginning. I would have struggled. It would have been very difficult for me. So if that's something that you're not good at, my advice would be find someone who is good at it that you can trust and bring them on board.
That's the hard part. Luckily it was your mom, because, finding somebody that you can trust and say, hey, here's my routing and account number. Here's my debit card number. Make sure the taxes are paid, make sure we've got materials, keep payroll going. That's hard to give over to that much control to somebody that you would hire. So to be able to have somebody that's, family, mom, if you can't trust mom, who can you trust, right?
Right. And I've heard some horror stories. Some other guys, 2 brothers that were general contractors that we worked for, found out that his office manager had embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they didn't even know, it had gone on for 2 or 3 years until they found out about it. And so you got to be really careful, because, you can't see every single bill and all these little things. And so, I was super blessed to to have my mom and family around me that came on, and it made it possible for us to continue to grow.
Now, when you started your own company, were you building the stairs or just doing the installs? I mean, what'd that look like, and kind of how did you set the infrastructure up to be able to do that initially?
We're members of the Stair Manufacturers Association, and they're a nationwide organization. They got maybe 250 or 300 companies that are members, and we've been doing that for maybe the last 9 years or so, and that's really helped us to see how things are done kind of around the country. And I realized that things are done very differently on the East Coast than they are on the West Coast, especially in the northern East Coast, where they're kind of these older states and they've got kind of different ways up there. And so in Vegas, the framers of the houses, so we work pretty much in residential homes, high-end residential homes. And any stairs that aren't floating typically are just framed in by the framers. Now back east, a lot of the companies will build these stairs in a shop, and then they'll just sell these stairs or bring them out and install them. So we never did that because that's just not how they do it. So when we started, it was just handrails. And so the framers would have a set of stairs in, we would come in, throw the handrails up, and we started because the specific date when we started, because remember 05, it was booming like crazy and nobody could keep up, and there's so many houses going up, and we were just working a ton. And one of the builders found out that I was getting my contractor's license, and he kind of pulled me aside, and he was frustrated because the stairs weren't getting installed in time. And he said, not only will I give you all of our homes, and they probably had 6 different subdivisions that were getting built at that time. He said, but I'll front the money, whatever you need. I'll pay for your equipment. Just as soon as you can get started, we need some help. So it was kind of like too good to pass up.
Yeah.
So they gave us, not only did they supply, I don't know, maybe somewhere between $750 and $1 million worth of work a year, but they also gave us a line of credit of whatever we wanted. He said somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 to buy all the tools and get set up and all of that. We didn't need to use all of that, so that worked out great. And then as soon as we got going, he just deducted those from our paychecks, and we paid them all back in about a year. So then we were free and clear and up and running, and so it was a lot of things just kind of fell into place for us that really helped out. So we were just out in the field basically, and that was kind of who we were.
Okay. Now, how long did you plan? Because I went through a similar situation back in, almost 2 years ago when we opened up the welding school. But I had planned everything out down to the T. So when it came time for to go, to set up the school and bring everything in, everything just clicked and fell into place. So is that very similar? I mean, did you plan everything out way ahead of time, or was it I'm getting my GC license. This guy, we just had this conversation. He's going to give me all this money to get started. Grab your tools, get your shit. Let's get in the truck and go start a business. Or did you do some forethought and long game planning with the strategy?
No long game planning, and very much impromptu. I mean, I was getting the license, so I knew that's what I wanted to do in the future, but I hadn't even got the license yet. I had just barely submitted the paperwork and was starting the process. And they said, no, you got to start now. And so I quit what I was doing with the other company. And for a while, they paid me through their payroll until my license came through so that they could pay me. And I've found that I'm not good at planning everything out and doing all the details. And as we've grown, so it started with 2 of us, and we got about 112 people now. And as we've grown and I've learned more about myself and about business, I know how important it is to surround you with people that are good at the things that you suck at. And I'm not very good at planning out all of the details. You had it all set up, you knew what you were going to do and had this game plan. I had none of that. I'm kind of well, let's ready, aim, shoot, or ready, shoot, aim. How does that work? So, but now I look for people that I know have some of those strong suits to join the company, because I know I'm not good at it. And that's been very helpful for the company.
That's a really good attribute to know where your weaknesses are, because a lot of people they let their ego get in the way, and they're I've got to do everything. I can't trust anybody to do this. But to sit back and say, you know what, I suck at this. Let me find somebody that's really good at it, that I can trust and I can pay them to take this off my plate. Because initially, once you start a business, I'm sure you've been at this for over 20 years. Like, that's the hardest part is getting all those parts and pieces into place, because you're wearing so many different hats, trying to, make sure the bills are paid. You got material coming in, you got to process, you got to install, you got bids, you got to meet with clients, like all that stuff's going on, and you can't get anything done because you're bouncing from, one spot to the next.
Yeah. And it takes, I don't know, at first you just truly believe that you're better than everybody at all of those things. And so it's really hard to imagine giving that to somebody else, because you go, they're never going to do it as good as I am. And as you start to grow and you have to give some of that up, then you find out, oh, wow, they're actually way better at this than I am, even though I thought I was the best at it. And, one thing that really helped me personally is we went to one of those SMA events. It was back east, and they had a kind of a business coach that was there. And he stood up and he talked about a couple things, and it really resonated with me. And I got a hold of him afterwards, and I said, hey, everything you said was really it was like what I needed to hear. And I'm like, I'm wondering if we can hire you to help, consult for our company. And so he said yes. He lives in Ohio. So he flew down and spent some time with me, and he went through the whole business. And, he said, I need about 3 days, and I need to talk to all your key people, spend an hour with them. I'm going to ask them a whole bunch of questions. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to look and see how things are operating, and then we'll kind of sit down and see what you need to do. And when he kind of got done those couple days with all our people, he sat down with me and said, I got to tell you something. There's a lot of things that are right at JD Stairs because of you. He said, but there's a whole lot of things that are wrong because of you. He said, we gotta fix that. And so when you're the boss, it's like no one wants to talk to you like that. And so they just, oh yeah, yes sir, we'll do that kind of stuff, But to have someone come in and tell you, hey, a lot of things are wrong with this company because you are screwing up, was an eye opener. And so really from that point on, I started to look at, well, what things do I do that I'm probably making a mess of, that if I were to just hand that off to someone else, they would just do a better job at it, and the company would run smoother. And so I've really, over the last 5 years, been able to look at that stuff and really hand that stuff off. And it's one of those growing experiences that anyone that wants to go from a small, 5-10 person company where you can really put your hands on everything, to a larger 50, 60, 70 person company where you've got to let go of some stuff. That's one of those things you just have to learn.
Now, did you find it beneficial hiring a business coach?
Yes, definitely. So we probably had him on for maybe 2 to 3 years, and he'd pop out maybe once a quarter, and he would just kind of hash everything out, and he'd look around and try and figure out, well, what's your rework? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, how often do you have to rework stuff? I don't know. He said, you don't track that? No. He said, then how do you know how much money you're losing in rework if you don't even track it? Well, I don't know. We're probably losing a lot. He said, you are probably losing a lot. So all of these little things that are business things that you don't, the layman doesn't know. We just install stairs, right? So we start a company and we don't know what we're doing. And then the guy comes in and starts saying all this stuff, and you go, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't know that. So it helps to train yourself on the business aspect of things instead of just the trade.
Yeah. I've had a couple of guests on recently, and they've all recommended hiring a business coach. And so I'm slowly moving towards that, that's my next hurdle I got to do. I'm working on hiring somebody part-time to come into the shop and the lab and help me get everything set up, and, just be an extra set of hands for the most part that I can train so that I can kind of step away a little bit and handle some other things. And then hopefully I'll be able to keep bringing more and more people in, because it's actually growing a lot faster than I anticipated. I didn't think the need for training and testing was going to be as big as it was here in Central Florida. I was like, yeah, I'll work part-time here. I'll do the podcast part-time, and then everything's good. And then the next thing I know, man, I'm getting phone calls and emails and people stopping by all the time for all this work. And it's like, oh, damn, I had no idea that it was going to pop off like this. Like I said, I thought it was going to be part-time. So yeah, I think hiring a business coach is probably going to be in my near future, hopefully by the end of 2025.
And it's got to be, you got to be careful too, because it's got to be the right one. We've had people walk in
Yeah.
and it's just the wrong people. So as long as it's the right person that's doing it the right way, then it can be good. Some of it is just a waste of money, and it just like we had someone come in and they were kicked him out about a couple hours after they came in. We're like, no, this is not the right place for you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm afraid of, because I would imagine they charge a pretty penny to do that service, and you bring somebody in and like you don't know, because like they're supposed to be the subject matter expert. You're relying on them to tell you, and if they're not doing good for you and you're not really giving you advice that you need, you still got to pay them. Well, now you've wasted all that money on trial and error.
Yeah, and it's pretty bad. So that's why when I'd ran into a few before, until this guy, no one really resonated with me. He was kind of a cool story. The guy was a recruiter for the Detroit Pistons, and he was kind of going to live this sports life, and then he lived in Michigan, and then he felt a call to leave that life behind and go work in a church. And so he leaves, like his family's trying to do an intervention because he's got this great job and everything's going great. And then he's like, no, I'm going to pack up and move to Sugar Creek, Ohio, which is in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. And his family's like all worried. And he got there and just felt that he had a calling, and he kind of drove around until he found this church, and he walked in, and the guy was like, I've been praying for someone to help me. So he just walked in, and so he did that. He was growing the church for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And then via the church, a lot of people were asking, hey, you could do this kind of stuff for my business, because I see how the church runs, and the church runs great. He took it from this little podunk church to 4 or 5, 1,000 people congregations around. And so he'd really done a good job. And so then he just kind of took what he'd learned in the church world and brought it into the business world. And so it was great, because not only did he kind of coach on business stuff, but he coached on life stuff too. It was like, hey, business is great, but also you as a person, you've got to grow to let the business grow. So he was coaching personally too, which was really good.
Oh, that's cool. Whole thing's kind of like divine intervention.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys, the stairs that you install, and I'm assuming you also manufacture them in your shop as well, is it all steel, or do you guys do wood? Do you do a mix of steel, wood, aluminum, like pretty much anything that the clients need?
Yeah, and I think a lot of businesses, probably like ours, just grow to whatever that kind of need is. Some people have a really good plan and they point themselves in a specific direction. We just kind of went where the work was. And so in the early days, we were just carpenters. I hadn't welded as a kid. I'd never touched a welder. I was just fully carpentry. And then it didn't take long, maybe 6 or 8 months after we started, people started asking us for wrought iron rails, welded, forged, stuff like that in these homes. And we had never done them, so we didn't even bid them. But kind of the turning point was a family friend who got a bid, and it was like $30,000 or something. And he said, well, he handed us the bid. He said, well, if you guys can do it, I'll just pay you what I was going to pay the other guys. So when you're like, oh yeah, we don't want to turn down $30,000, let's do it. So we go buy a welder and have no idea what we're doing and start trying to figure all this stuff out. And then you just sort of attract people. And so people kind of came around looking for work that had lots of years experience in forge work and metalworking and things like that. And then it just started to grow. So now, like originally it was all woodwork and just a little bit of metalwork. And now it's mostly metalwork and a little bit of woodwork. So a lot of our floating stairs is kind of our big thing in Vegas. In these high-end homes, we're doing like single stringer stairs and kind of curved steel stairs. And so most of the structures are steel floating. And then because the carpentry aspect of it, then we go ahead and put our own wood treads in. A lot of times it's a wood handrail, some wood paneling on the wall. We're building the front door. We're doing the entry gates. We're doing the fencing around the property. We're building planters and gabion walls. And so when you get in with these clients and they're building a $25 million home and they like you and trust you, then they're like, well, why would I go hire someone else? You guys can build this and this and this and this. And so the contracts started to go from $20,000 or $30,000 to $100,000 to $200,000, and they just kind of kept growing as people knew and trusted us.
Okay, so the scope of work just kept growing exponentially larger.
Yeah, and then we got into structural. Some of my guys had structural background, so I mean, if you're an iron guy, you think, oh, no big deal to throw up some beams and columns like it's nothing. But if you haven't lived in that world, it is so intimidating to look at a beam that weighs 6,000 or 8,000 pounds and go, I'm supposed to do what with that thing? You want me to pick that thing up in the air and start putting it 25 feet in the air? Like, no way, you are crazy. But some of my guys came from that world, and they kept telling me, like, no, it's not that hard. It's you just some bolts and some welds, and you just stick it up. And I'm like, okay, if you say so. So we did a job and got the job, and then it just kind of continued from there.
And it's all residential work. You don't do any commercial at all?
A little bit, not a lot. So for us, because we're kind of this custom shop, our price point's a little bit of a higher price point. But in the commercial work, it's kind of more blow and go, get it done. And the pricing, the decisions are made a lot more on pricing. And so it's hard to be competitive. You got to lower your margins. Whereas in a custom home, it's a lot of reputation, quality, things you can do. And so it allowed us to kind of separate ourselves a little bit better in that market. Whereas in the commercial market, we're just another steel fabricator, and they don't care what nice houses we've worked in. They just want their stuff in so they can sell it.
It's a lot easier to work with a homeowner and say, hey, look at my portfolio than it is with like a commercial account. And they're like, I don't care. Does it meet code? We're going to paint it white, and here's what it's going to be.
Yeah. They was, well, you were 20% higher than the other guy, so we gave it to the other guy.
Yeah, but we do really good work, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, maybe next time.
Yeah, and stairs are like, I got to do, that was the first thing that I did when I got out of the military. I got a job. I was looking for a job in the newspaper. This company, they needed somebody to do aluminum spool gun work. Well, I didn't realize that the aluminum spool gun work was it comes after you erect all the stairs, and then you weld all the handrail together. And so like that was my first job, and I did that for a little over a year with this company. And stairs were fun. I mean, it was like, especially, we were working at a, I guess it's like a really ritzy neighborhood now. It's Baldwin Park in Florida. And it used to be, it's like the old decommissioned naval base, but it's like really high end homes and stuff like that. So we were going through and putting in all these nice ornamental stairs and handrails and all this stuff on the exterior. And it was a lot of fun. But in between hanging those, I'd go out with the other crew that did structural steel iron work. And they hated doing the stairs. They just couldn't figure it out. And so like me and this guy, Matt, that worked with me, he was, it was he and I doing all the stairs and handrails out of Baldwin Park. We'd show up to a job, and then we'd put all the stairs and handrails up for the guys because they're iron workers. They didn't have any fabrication skills. So if the stairs didn't fit just like it was supposed to on the print, they were pretty much done at that point. So we got to go out there and rework a lot of stairs and handrails. And it's very challenging coming up with like pick points. How are you going to get this stairs up there when there's nothing? You don't have any crane access. You can't get a forklift inside these little pockets and stuff like that. So you start coming up with crafty little ways to be able to rig up stairs and stuff like that. And it's a lot of fun. You put the landing up there, you get that all bolted in, and then figure out your pitch and where the bottom part of your stringer's got to sit. And it's a challenge. And I don't think stairs never really get old, do they? I mean, you've been doing it for 20 years. I would imagine every project is like a new set of challenges every single time.
Yeah, and it's a blast, and that's one of the things that keeps me interested in it. Someone shows up with some off the wall stair that's got to go from here to over here, but it's got to do this, and it's like, oh, this is right up my alley. Let's figure this out. So, what kind of welding did you do? Was it Marine Corps? You said?
Yeah. A little bit of everything: stick, MIG, TIG, flux core, pretty much whatever. It depended on the material and where I was at the time. When we'd operate off a contact truck, so it was like a Humvee, but it's kind of like a big maintenance vehicle. So we had there's a Miller stick welder in there, like a thermodynamics plasma cutter at the time, and it just everything ran off the engine. But then we had there's like a big Hobart welder that we could run MIG. We could do aluminum off of it, or aluminum spool gun, and we could do stick. So it's kind of like a little tow behind trailer welder, but I mean, thing was freaking massive. So we pretty much do anything and everything that you could do in a regular shop, but we could do it on site.
And that's maintaining all the equipment and stuff. That's what you guys were handling.
Pretty much a little bit of everything. So like I built custom fab work out in the desert when we deployed to Kuwait and Iraq. I built anti-decapitation devices for Humvees and 7 tons because as the troops were going through different towns, the insurgents or whatever, the bad guys, we'll just call them bad guys because I'll skip over that part. Yeah, we call them bad guys. They put up piano wire in between the streets. So as the gunners were driving down the road, it would literally decapitate people. Just boom, done.
Oh, geez.
So we had to build like anti-decapitation devices, welded on howitzers, because they've got travel locks that are made out of aluminum. So it's like that big long gun. You know, it pulls behind like a trailer. When they get to where they're going, they kind of spread the legs out, and it's a 40 millimeter cannon. But as it's driving down the road, and so they don't want that barrel moving up and down, they got like this travel lock. Well, the travel lock's made out of aluminum, and it's just like a big X brace. And so like all the welds would constantly crack on those things. So I spent like a good 6, 7, 8 weeks out in the middle of the desert just welding up travel locks on these things. So it was a lot of fun, just in like all kinds of random stuff. You never knew what was going to come over to the pad. Somebody's like, hey, can you fix this? Can you weld this? Can you fabricate it? So it was always something different, a little bit of a challenge every day.
That sounds fun.
It was for a while until it wasn't. And then I got out.
Right.
The welding part was fun.
Getting shot at was not fun, probably.
No, mortars are the worst.
Oh, geez. Yeah, my brother he was over in Kuwait for a while with the Army, and he was a generator mechanic. So a lot of those skills translate. You know, he can do some things that we're like, how did you learn this? Like, well, in the Army. Like, oh,
yep.
Wow, this is cool.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome. I mean, that was one of the cool things about being in the military or the Marines and being a welder. When I got out, I had transferable skills. So it was nothing to say, let me just go look and find out, who's hiring for a welder, because I've been doing it for the last 4 years in the Marine Corps, and I welded for like 2 years in high school. So I already had the background. I was like, yeah, I'll just stick with this. It's, I know it.
Right.
And then I just started learning new fabrication techniques and working with different equipment. So it's been a lot of fun.
So how's your school work? Is that is it a 12-week course kind of thing, or how do you guys do that?
No, we went the complete opposite direction. So the school is basically set up for home hobbyists, makers, and DIYers. So like the longest program I offer is a 36-hour comprehensive class. It goes for 1 week, Monday through Friday, 8 to 3. And we jump in and do stick, MIG, TIG, and a little bit of flux core. So it's basically, I go over the advantages and disadvantages of each process, welding safety, the 5 different types of weld joints, 2 different types of welds, and we just kind of turn everybody loose. So I go through and I'll do a demo and say, okay, we're gonna start off with a T joint, and so they weld up the T joint. Once everybody's kind of proficient, we'll say, okay, now we're gonna move on to a lap joint. Okay, now we're gonna do an outside corner joint. Now we're gonna do an open root, and we just kind of walk them through every one of the different processes and the positions, material thicknesses, and all that, and try to give them as much as I can, that you're able to in a week. But then I have some people that, they're like, man, I had a blast. I want to come back and learn some more. So we essentially, wherever you come into the program, we work with you at the level you're at and try to take you to the next level. So I've had some folks come down, they're already experienced, and they're like, hey, I just really need to focus in and get some feedback on this process that, I'm not too familiar with. Like, I already know how to weld. Like I'm already a stick welder. Walk me through MIG. I'm getting more MIG work in the shop, or I'm getting more stick work out in the field. Can you kind of show me how to get better at this? And so I'll just work with them and, pretty much whatever they want when they come through the program. And that's the cool thing about not having a 6-month long, rigid curriculum where, we have to start here and work on this. It's like, you come in the door, what do you want to work on? Cool. We'll do that. And because I only take 5 people at a time. So it's fairly small class sizes.
That's cool. Yeah, one of our struggles is, so we got a welding company, welding school here in town, and they put them through a course, and then they get certified or not, depending on if they pass the test or not. And then a lot of times they'll send them out, and somehow we got on their radar, so they send a lot of them to us. But we're a fabrication company, so they teach them how to pull the trigger and do a joint, and then they come here and we're like, okay, well, we need to make this gate. So here's the plans. There's a grinder and the chop saw, and put all this together. And they're like, I just know how to weld. So they're missing that fabrication stuff. They can weld, but like, okay, well, there's a lot more to it than just pulling the trigger.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by the International Welding Bureau. The IWB is committed to setting the highest standards in welding certification and technical expertise. Whether you're a professional looking to advance your skills or a company needing to ensure compliance with industry regulations, the IWB is here to help by providing comprehensive certification services, WPS databases, and support to help you meet and exceed the demands of modern welding projects. Elevate your welding credentials with the IWB, your partner in professional excellence. Visit internationalweldingbureau.com to learn more. We're also brought to you by Everlast Welders. Meet the Typhoon 230, your new standard in welding excellence. Featuring 230 amp AC/DC pulse TIG and a 200 amp stick capability, this machine handles any welding challenges with ease. Its standout feature? A large 5.1 inch high definition LCD color screen that's clear and easy to navigate, showing you all of your settings at a glance for quick setup. Experience precise control with independent amplitude adjustment and split waveform control in AC for top tier welding performance. Visit everlastgenerators.com to explore more and claim your free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal by typing in Arc Junkies in the comments section at checkout. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. Now let's get back to the show. I had the same problem when I got into education. That's what I thought. I was like, okay, I'll teach you guys the same way I learned how to weld. And it's the process, the position, all that good stuff. Okay, cool. Now you're a welder. Go out in the door and give it all you got. And the feedback that I was getting from industry, they were saying, it's great that they can come out of school and they know how to weld. We need them to be able to cut, fit, fabricate, and read blueprints. So then I switched over and, because of the feedback from industry, I was like, okay, cool. We'll start doing project-based learning. So after you get the skill sets taken care of, like how to weld, okay, now with that process, we're going to do a couple fabrication projects using that welding process before we get into the next process. So you start off on a stick, then you get into MIG, and then we get into flux core and aluminum, and I'd try to come up with different projects for each application. And it wasn't always something practical. Sometimes it's just like previous widgets from different welding competitions that I'd get from other welding instructors, but it would show them, here's how you do like a small scale layout. Okay, you're going to have to cut this with the oxy fuel torch. You got to cut this part with the saw. This one gets cut with the chop saw. This one you need a plasma cut, and here's how you need to weld it together, the tolerances and the dimensions and everything. And here's all the welding symbols. And every once in a while, I'm sure you've probably seen your fair share of them. You put the wrong welding symbol in the wrong spot intentionally to throw them off to see if they'll come back and ask for questions or, say, hey, do an RFI, show them how to do an RFI. Hey, the print says this, but it's not possible to do that here. Like, help me out. Okay, cool. So then I'd give them the information that they needed. But you kind of set some of them up for failure, hoping that they're going to come and ask those questions.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. That's what the industry needs, is not just, hey, this is how you operate the machine, but this is how you use your brain. You got to go through this step and how to get things square and read the plans. We pulled a guy out of the shop here maybe 3 weeks ago, and that was the first thing I did is I gave him a plan reading course. There's a couple good ones online. It takes about a week and a half. And he's like, dude, I had no idea. He learned so much in that week and a half. And sometimes you've been in construction a long time, you just think, oh, well, everybody knows how to read a set of plans, but it's just not true.
You think that? I thought that as a welding instructor, I was like, oh, everybody knows. Everybody that's coming in to take the welding class, they know how to use a tape measure and they know how to use power tools. And boy, was I wrong. Like I had to, I took so much for granted, because I'd come out of the shop working with a bunch of iron workers and I go right into education. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like working with apprentices. They at least know how to read a tape measure and use power tools. No. So like after I figured that out, I was like, okay, we're going to break this down Barney style. And we're going to start, step 1. Here's how to read a tape measure. Okay. Step 2, here's safety, grinder safety. Go through and break everything down to the simplest possible term, the simplest kind of like base knowledge that's in the class. And you just start building them up from there. And the cool thing was, like, the program I was teaching at, it was 2 22-week sessions. So I'd have most of them, 90% of the students would come back and take the second part. So I'd have most of them for 44 weeks, and at 36 hours a week, damn near a full-time work week, like you could get a lot done in that time frame and kind of push them out into industry. And I would have a lot of them kind of focus in on like, what do you want to do with the skills once you get out? Where do you want to go to work? Okay, you want to go work over, at JD Stairs? Cool. We're going to work on, stair layout. Or, you want to do structural steel ironwork? Cool. Here's my old harness. Climb to the top of this ladder and go weld that painted, piece of plate up. Just throw things at them that are different. Okay, you want to go get into a TIG welding industry. Okay, you need to focus more on your steel and stainless and aluminum work. Just it all depended on where they wanted to go. I used to do a lot of we called them off-campus learning experiences because the school didn't like the term field trips for a college, so we just call it an Oakley. And so I'd show them, and I'd take them down to the Ironworkers Union. This is what the ironworkers do. Okay, cool. We'd go over to Mitsubishi Power Systems. Okay, here's what these guys do. Go to different fab shops, mom and pop shops, large scale fabrication companies, concrete manufacturers that do, multi-story concrete garages that require welders all the time. And we just go tour these different facilities, hoping that these students would kind of gravitate towards one area of the industry, because there's so much you can do with welding. It's like, go, check this out. Oh, that's cool, Mr. Becker. Okay, well, this is what you need to work on once we get back to the shop, and just kind of expose them to more.
Yeah, it's so good to see that stuff, and it's helped us so much to be part of the Stair Manufacturers Association, where we get to see some of that, because every time you go to someone's shop, you see some little jig or they're doing something, and to them, they're just like, whatever, that's how we did it. But it's probably a problem you have in your shop, and you go, oh, crap, I never thought about that. And then you leave going, this is great. And you go back to your shop and you fix these things, and it's not even what they wanted to teach you when you showed up, but it's what you get out of it.
Yeah. I used to do the same thing. I'd go to educator workshops when I was a welding instructor and just learn different teaching strategies, methodologies, problem solving skills, because a lot of the instructors are dealing with the same issues in different states, and and they've kind of figured out how to tackle that situation. So you come back with all that base knowledge, and like, that's not why I went on this that's not why I went to the educator workshop. I went because the company that was putting this session on had a structured curriculum we were going to go through, and I was going to get some PDHs. But networking with the other instructors, like, you learn so much more while you're there. Probably the same thing with you. You go talk to other stair manufacturers, and they're like, oh yeah, here's what we're doing now. You're like, oh damn, never thought of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually teaching a stair school now for the SMA, and so we do 2 stair schools a year, kind of one central U.S. and one East Coast. And one of the things we implemented at JD Stairs maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't remember when, was a tape measure test. I didn't, you just assume, hey, people know how to do this. And then I realized, oh crap, half of my people don't know how to read a tape measure. And so I put together a test that has 16 boxes, and each one is a 16th of an inch, and you got to, as fast as you can, write down, the correct reading on the tape measure. And the JD Stairs motto is 60 seconds or less. If you can't do it in 60 seconds, then you come back and try again. And some of our guys, they just had a hard time, and it took them like a month. Every day they do the test every single day until finally they could get it in less than 60 seconds. So now I do that with the stair school. That's one of the things that we do first. I'm like, okay, this is step number 1. Can you read a tape measure? And it's a lot of fun, because you just kind of have fun with it and get prizes and stuff. But
that's crazy. You would think that if they're in either install or manufacturing stairs, they would know how to read a tape measure, because that's a big part of the job. It's like looking at
a lot of them are apprentices, and they're just learning, so they might not be to that level yet, but it's
that. And a lot of companies, I would imagine, you've got like jigs for the repetitive staircases and stuff that come through.
Yeah,
they've all probably got everything's already tack welded to the table. You just cut the parts to that size, slap it in there, and weld it out.
We actually went to a cabinet shop in Ohio, and one of the things he said that stuck with me in his cabinet shop is that our goal is to have no tape measures on the fabrication floor. And that sounds kind of weird, but the goal was to have stuff so precise and so programmed and so cut out that there's only one way it could go together. And if you put it together right, it's going to be square and straight and true, and you don't even need a tape measure. And so it was the goal for all the front end guys that are drawing and programming to make it so simple that anybody could put it together even without a tape measure. And so it made me think a lot about our processes, where you just throw it out and say, well, they'll figure it out. And he had a totally different mindset. Like, no, they should never have to figure it out. You should have it so dialed in that it's just easy.
That's a good way to do it. There's one of the companies that we used to tour all the time. They build 3-wheel bikes, like regular bicycles. They fold up. You can throw it in the back of your car. They're high dollar, high end bikes. But now that I think about it, like none of their welders or their fabricators have to use a tape measure, because the R&D department, they've made all of these jigs to where you go grab the piece of material off the rack, you lock it into this jig, you hit it with a chop saw. It's the perfect size to load into the next jig to cope it out with a hole saw. And so like and then once you take all your parts and pieces that you have numbered back to your station and you connect it all like Legos, everything just fits together perfectly. And then you tack it out and weld it up.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
Have you seen the movie The Founder? About McDonald's?
No, I want to watch that one.
So there's a part in that movie where the McDonald's brothers have a drive-in fast food restaurant, burger joint. And, typically you show up, you place your order, then they cook the burgers, and a lot of times they get the orders wrong, and it takes you 20 minutes to get your hamburger. And so they're like, we're going to revolutionize this. It's going to be called the Speedy System. And so they design a whole kitchen around efficiency. And they go out to this tennis court and they start drawing out all of the stations and the processes. And they have all their employees come. And they're standing up on a ladder 15 feet watching them pretend to make burgers. And they keep bumping into each other, and they got to move this plate over here, but then they got to move it back over here. And then they're going, whoa, that's not efficient. And at the end of a 8-hour day, they've like rearranged the kitchen 5 different ways until everything is streamlined. And they're like, you can order a burger and have it in 30 seconds. And I love watching that, because when I think about the business, you get stuck in these mindsets of this is how you do a certain process a certain way, until you kind of step back and critique it and go, oh, I didn't realize I could do it a different way. And you can get so much better and more streamlined, but it's just fun to watch, especially the way they do it in that movie, to think, hey, sometimes you got to change your mindset.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all about efficiency. Like, I'm going through studying for the certified welding supervisor credential now, because it's like one of the things I wanted to attain. I keep telling myself I want to do it. I finally dusted off the book, and I've been going through reading everything. And it starts off with the 5 different types of management systems, like the no system, the total management system, the total welding management system. Like, there's all these different systems, and it's all based on, well, most of them are based off of, efficiency and productivity. And how do you increase that? So once you start improving your proficiency and your production, you start to decrease your waste. So I mean, like, that's the biggest thing, is like, let's cut out all the unnecessary processes as we're working through this. And, you're constantly improving your business to make things more efficient. Like you said, you're not, making a burger, bumping into somebody else trying to get the mayonnaise or ketchup or whatever. Like, it turns into like a constant flow. Like, you receive the parts on this side of the building, it goes through all the processing, fabrication, welding, painting, boom, out the other door. And you kind of build like a little serpent inside of the shop to make everything super efficient to get it out.
Yeah, I dream about being that efficient sometimes, but because I've toured some shops that are just good, like you say, steel comes in one end, station, out the other side. Man, these guys have got it going. And so someday we'll get there. We'll keep trying.
Need more square footage. That's usually the problem.
And a tube laser. Keep on a tube laser.
Oh yeah, have you been to FabTech yet?
I've been a couple times, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think the lasers are becoming, well, I say they're becoming more affordable, but they're not within my price range. But hey, you've been in business for 20 years. It's time to buy yourself a laser,
Well, we got 2 flat lasers, and recently I toured another facility, and they had it's called a flex CNC. So most CNCs are kind of like in a booth 5 feet wide, and it's enclosed, but this one runs along a tram. And so it's 24 feet long. And so what that allowed us to do is, when we do a single stringer stair, and so you got like a 6x6 or an 8x8 tube, what we were doing is we'd cut and prep all the parts and pieces, take it out to the job site, and we'd put it together a lot of times at the job site. So we didn't have to hoist in this prefabricated structure that was big and heavy. And I saw how this other company was doing it, and I'm like, oh man, we had that machine, you could lay it all out, drill and tap holes in the tube all the way up the tube, prep your brackets. Then when you go to the house, you just stand the stringer up, and then you take all your brackets, and they just bolt on. And so that machine has been really cool, and it's really helped us streamline our process. And then the layout's always right because it's off of a CNC machine. So that's been really useful.
I was going to say, because I know there's a company out here down in Orlando, they use their plasma machine to do handrail templates. So same thing. They're not using tape measures because like you only have to cut all the pickets the right way. But they take like a big 5x10 sheet or whatever, and they'll use their laser or their CNC plasma cutter not to cut, but they'll drop the voltage down so that they can etch in the material. So now you've got all your, okay, here's your top stringer, here's, all your pickets, like everything is laid out. So you just slap everything in between the lines and boom, tack it up, weld it out, flip it, weld it again, out the door.
Yeah. We have a wood CNC, and so we'll sometimes do that on a sheet of MDF and just etch it in there and set it on the wood. But I was at a company called Heirloom there in South Carolina, I think. And same thing, they had a plasma and they would etch it out.
Yeah. I was like, that's one way to do it. Like, I never even thought about using it for doing anything other than cutting, but it makes sense to do your layout that way, especially, if your engineer is already drawing it once, you're saving time and money by, instead of, passing the prints off to the guys out in the shop to cut it and fabricate and all that, you just load that same file into the CNC machine and it draws everything out for you.
Yeah, it's pretty handy.
There's another company that I can't remember the name of it. My buddy Adam Stretch sent me the information on it a while back, but it's a projector. So it's a laser projector you put over top of your workbench, and then you grab all your pieces. So you load the print into that projector, and boom, it shoots all the lines on the table. So then you just grab your pickets, your top rail, bottom rail, all your uprights, and just slap everything in between the lines. So it's a customizable every single time. You get done with that job, load the next one, boom, here's your print. And it's like a life-size blueprint right there on the table. You can just slap everything in.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. There's one that's got like a Sharpie marker almost in it. It's like a big gantry crane that goes over the table and draws it all out, and then you can wipe it down and it'll draw out the next thing you need to fab. But we looked into that, but it's pretty pricey.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I seen you guys are using robots. How are you liking those?
A lot. So I don't remember how we ended up going. So when we have a handrail post and it's got a plate on the bottom and you just weld around it, we usually use like 1.5 inch square tube for our post and a 4x4 plate on the bottom. And it seemed like everybody who came in, that was their job. That was the first thing they would do, is just weld all these plates on, which is great practice for learning how to weld. But it meant that a lot of our posts that went out had really crappy welds on them, and our installers were complaining because sometimes the cover shoes wouldn't fit over top of them because the crappy welds. And so one of my guys had seen on a video someone else using this robot, and we called the guy up, and he's like, well, we were going to go to FabTech. And we're like, oh, we'll come find you at FabTech, and then we can kind of see how the robot works. He's all, no, you don't need to go to FabTech. I'll bring it by. And he's got it set on a skid to go in he's had an enclosed van, and he just threw it in the van and brought it over. And he was welding parts like 15 minutes after he pulled up to our shop. He just backed it up in, and he said, what do you want to weld? And he put it in, and he programmed it, and that thing was welding, and I was blown away. I was like, dude, I cannot believe in 15 minutes this thing was programmed and ready to go. I was like, where do I sign? So that you just got to find kind of repetitive stuff. Not everything we do is repetitive, but if you can find some tasks that are repetitive and program them into the robot, you get a perfect weld every time. You get the same temperature every time, the same speed every time, and so now everybody loves our post plates because they're perfect every time. So it's pretty cool.
Well, I'm sure the shop guys like it because now they're not stuck welding posts all the time doing the same repetitive tasks. They can kind of go on and do the more challenging aspects of stair building. Yeah.
It's funny because a lot of shops they're scared of technology. At least the people inside the shops, because they're like, oh, it's going to take our jobs, but it never seems to take jobs. It seems to promote jobs.
That was going to be my next question, because that was my fear as a welder when I heard robots are coming out, especially as a welding instructor. It's like, well, shit, now I don't need to train anybody how to weld. I just need to show people how to program a robot. Well, wait, I don't know how to program a robot. I'm going to lose my job now. But like, that's the number one fear for a lot of people in skilled trades, that these robots are going to come take our jobs. But every person that I've talked to that has implemented cobots and robots and automation into their facility, they're like, no, we actually had to hire more people, because now that mundane, repetitious task is being handled, I can take these guys and put them on the more critical tasks. Now I'm getting more work in the door because we're cranking more stuff out at a faster rate.
Yeah. And most people I've talked to have said the same thing.
Yeah, I could see how it'd be hugely beneficial in the shop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you use them for like other tasks outside? Like, I know you said you use them for a lot of the repetitious tasks, but have you like welded out a set of stair stringers with them?
No, there's, unless you got your shop set up, all on rollers where you can roll it into position and roll it out. The structural fab stuff is kind of on the other side of our shop, because we set it up right next to the laser so that we can pull the posts off the laser and push the button and have it going. So it would take more time to get the material over to where the robot is than it does to weld it.
Gotcha.
So
you probably have like a cobot,
we haven't done
right?
that yet. I guess I don't know the difference.
It's when they program it, do you just grab the head and move it to where you need it to go?
No, you just run the program.
Okay.
So they're pretty easy to you can kind of, it's like a joystick, and you put it in the position 1, and you say save that position, and then you move it to position 2 and say save, and it'll go connect the dots from A to B. And once you save those positions, it'll just repeat that task every time.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking to a guy. He owns CM Welding out in Texas, like I think Houston area. Anyway, Corey Mays, and he does like pipe fabrication. And so that's kind of what he did, is he bought one cobot, and he was like an early adopter. Like as soon as they were available, he bought like the old school robots, and like production just started going up and up. So then he bought a second one, and then a third, and now he's got like a bunch of cobots and stuff in there. And he said it's like, he needs more robots now and welders. It's insane how fast they can increase your capabilities.
Yeah, because people tend to gravitate towards companies that are better run with better technology, and so the more you implement and improve in your company, the more business comes in the door, because people are just attracted to that, and you do a better job, and so then that puts you a little bit ahead of the next guy, and so all of those little things that you implement just brings more work in the door.
Yeah. Now, are you guys like solely? Do you just work specifically in Vegas, or do you like pretty much wherever the work is across the U.S., you'll go out and do it?
Historically, just Vegas. Vegas has been moving for a long time, and we really just haven't needed to branch out anywhere, because there's so much work here. We're like, why travel when we can just do it here? But it did slow down quite a bit last year, and so we are looking to branch out a little bit more. We do ship some stairs around the country, just not very much. We've never worked towards that. But at Utah, which we're right next to, is growing pretty fast, and there's a couple ski resorts there that they're just building, $30-40 million houses, is really high end stuff that would be kind of right in our market. And there's some in Arizona too, so we're going to start branching out to kind of those neighboring states. But now we've got our system dialed in that it'd be pretty easy to ship a stair anywhere in the U.S.
Okay. And then just let somebody else do the install, or like have your team go out there and do the install?
It depends on how custom it is. If it's kind of a simple one, they could probably just do it themselves. But if it's trickier, then we could come out. We just did one up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and we did one in Memphis for another stair builder. So they could have done it, but it was kind of their first one of that scale. And so I flew out for a couple of days and just worked with them and got them so that they were comfortable. And then they said now that they would just order it and I'd ship it to them, and they'd have no problem.
Okay. Now, do you guys do the design of the stairs, or do you just rely on, okay, you're doing residential stuff. So like you said, high-end homes, like the homeowner says, here's what I want. They've got an engineer and architect on staff. Are they designing that, or they just give you the concept and say, here's the space, like build this for us?
Mostly they've got it designed. Most of the houses that we're working in, they've been designing for a year and a half before they ever get to us, and they've got specific things that they want it to look like. We'll tweak it. It comes to us, and we might say, that doesn't work very good. Can we change this or move this or do a couple things? But we're not, for the most part, we're usually working with a GC, an architect and designer, so they kind of got that handled. In the early days, it was a lot of remodels and smaller stuff. And so then a lot of our expertise would come into that design. But there's less of that for us now. But some of our designs we've kind of pushed those to some of the builders and say, hey, we've got this that looks really good. And so they're kind of catching on to those, and there's some fun stuff that we're doing that way.
Okay, so you got like swatches for stairs, essentially.
Yeah, you could call that.
You got some samples. That's pretty slick. Now, over your career, what's been like the most challenging set of stairs you've ever had to put up or do an install for?
They change over time, but we've done a couple over the last year or two that are plate steel stairs and curved, and that was kind of new for us, and so it was a learning experience on how to set those things up, and you'll see them in like airports and stuff, and so these big commercial guys are kind of built these before, but for us it was pretty new, and so we did one last year that was really nice. The center of it was just a plate that we had rolled and cut out, and the outside was a stringer, and then it was all glass all the way around the outside. And we custom made these glass standoffs that just had like a 1/2-inch hole, so it was really small. So every piece of glass had to hit on that exact spot, radiused all the way up. And we've been hearing about this glass company called Glass Shape out of New Zealand, and they kept pinging us every once in a while saying that they could, we could order from them and we wouldn't have to make templates. They come out and laser scan it, and we're like, I don't know about ordering from a glass company on the other side of the globe. But that was the first job that we decided to pull the trigger, because they said for an extra, whatever it was, $3,000 or something, they said, we will guarantee the glass will fit. They have this insurance premium that you can buy when you buy glass from them that guarantees the glass will fit.
Oh, damn.
I was like,
that's
all
worth
right,
it.
I'll give it a whirl. Let's do it. And they send their 3D scanner guy out, and he scans the whole stair, and they draw up a model for me, and they made some good recommendations on how to make the glass look just right. And then they shipped it out, and every single piece of glass hit right in the 1/2-inch hole where it was supposed to hit. I was just blown away. I was like, this, and not only that, the quality of the glass looked phenomenal. The polishing and the edging, and I was like, man, I'm going to order every glass from now on from these guys.
That's how they got you. Yeah, I would imagine that'd be a rough one, because glass isn't something you just rework in the field.
Yeah, you get one shot.
Oh man, it's like it's a half a hole off. Like just hit it with the bolt pin or the bullpen. That's not going to work.
Yeah, glass is a little tough that way. And we did another one actually, kind of like that in a high rise, and they didn't have a service elevator. They just had the regular elevator, and so all the stair we had to cut in about 5-foot pieces and roll it in carts and take it up to the 38th floor. And it was all stainless steel, and then polish it all out. And that was before Glass Shape. So we built all these templates, and then we took them down and put them in a box and shipped them off and had the glass made. But that one actually had glass treads from Austria and Swarovski. They put all these Swarovski crystals inside. It was like a dual pane glass tread, and inside were these crystals. And so it sat down inside there, and you would walk up the stair with all these glass crystals.
Just if you can, just pure curiosity, what would a job like that cost?
That stair is probably $600,000.
Okay, that makes sense, because like they also make scopes, or they like their glass is like really high end for spotting scopes and stuff like that, and rifle scopes. So I've seen the cost of their scopes. I could only imagine what it would cost to get like their shards inlaid into glass for a set of stairs.
And the truth is, I didn't pay for the treads, so my part was $600,000. I bet they paid another $150 probably for those treads, at least.
No, that's pretty neat. I mean, it's cool to see like all the different types of stairs you can put up too. Because like you said, you've done floating stairs, spiral staircases, and it seems like the floating stairs, like, I don't know if that's like a trend right now, but anybody I see doing stairs and stuff on like Instagram, like the majority of them lately have been like the floating stair type.
Yeah.
And you see it in a lot of movies now too.
Mm-hmm. So we kind of picked up on it right after we started. 2007, 2008 was probably the first kind of floating stairs that we built. And then we had some builders really pushing that modern stuff here in Vegas. And so we got into it pretty early on, 15 years ago. But a lot of the stair companies I talked to only in the last 5 to 10 years, 5 to 7 years, really have started to embrace that. And a lot of them do it now.
No, that's really cool. Yeah, do you see any other trends coming up in like the stair industry?
Well, I see wood coming back a little bit, and curves. So for us, curves kind of went out for a while, and Vegas is probably a little bit ahead of some of the country and some of those trends. A lot of the other parts of the country are now doing floating stairs, and Vegas is like, yeah, we've been doing this, we're ready for something else, kind of. And so the curved stairs are starting to come back, and so we're seeing a lot of these plate steel stringers, or these you've seen the ones where the handrail's kind of embedded in the wall going up. A lot of that's coming in, but the woodwork is coming back in. It kind of disappeared for a while, and everyone was modern and glass and cable, and now we're starting to see that woodwork come back a little bit.
Okay, yeah, the aircraft cable ones, like those are a pain in the ass nightmare, aren't they? Like
Not once you've done
run
them.
the cable.
Yeah, it just takes a couple jobs to kind of get a feel for it, and then you just fly through it.
Because it's pretty precise work when you run those, right? Because they get cut off exact, and to be able to hold the tension and everything that's needed.
Yeah. Once you got it down, it goes pretty good, but you screw up a couple cables real quick.
Yeah, you got to know how to read a tape measure once again.
Yeah.
That
So
helps.
we ended up buying a swagger because we kept subbing that out, and it's like $3,500. And after 10 or 15 jobs, we were like, I think we should buy our own swagger, and so it makes it quick and easy now.
Oh, that's cool. Well, awesome, Jonathan. It's been a blast chatting with you this evening. Learning all about the stair industry and some of the stuff that you guys do out there. If somebody's looking to get a hold of you, be it for either employment or to get a set of stairs put in their house, like what's the best way to get a hold of you and follow you on social media?
You can go to our website, just jdstairs.com, and you can check that out. And there's links on there to Instagram and Facebook and the social media stuff. You can always connect on Instagram and kind of chat it up that way, or you can just call the office, and we're always open to shop tours as well. So if you're ever in Vegas and just kind of want to check us out, you just give us a ring and we'll walk you around.
Well, cool, man. Once again, I appreciate you taking the time to come out here and chat with the listeners, or chat with me so the listeners can hear it all about the stairs and stuff you guys do.
You bet. It's been fun.
All right, hold up. Before you go, I want to say a huge thank you to Jonathan for joining us today and sharing his incredible story. If you enjoyed the conversation, do me a favor, share this episode with a friend and drop me a review. Your feedback supports my mission to help educate and inspire the next generation of welders, and it helps me reach more people just like you. Don't forget to hit that follow button on your favorite podcast downloader app to keep up with all the latest episodes. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.